Hello, Yakri here with another Dominions 5 tutorial, or tutorial of sorts. So, one question I noticed among the various comments I got on my more recent videos was someone asking about transitioning into mid-game and into end-game, and that got me thinking about how I could actually cover that topic, because transferring between early game, the early game is kind of a little bit easier to generalize and easier to do for each nation, right? It's much simpler than explaining how to get to mid-game for a given nation, or even knowing how to go into mid-game for a particular nation, right? Like, it requires more knowledge on my part and then more time to make a video about it, right? So it's very difficult to do for, like, say, every nation in the game, which you'd kind of have to do because it is pretty different for most nations. There's probably some categories that are very similar, but a lot of nations have at least some level of specific knowledge required, or specific tricks that are useful to know. So what I'm going to try and do instead is do something a little more general and talk about like what the type of steps you would take to go into the mid game and go into the end game are, as any given nation. Like, what you're specifically going to be doing is a little bit different, but there is a sort of a general I don't know, approach to it, right? So I've got this game set up as Early Age Mictlan, right? Both of the test games I ran did not go particularly well. Perhaps it's my fault for choosing Mictlan and Baratos as the example nations that I wanted to do, as they've both suffered a bit coming into Dominions 5, but maybe it's better that way to have chosen nations that are a bit rocky, as opposed to, actually not sure what as opposed to. I've had a pretty easy time as middle-aged Uruk so far. Let's see. So anyway, with what I went with this nation was a blessed setup with 5 fire, 7 nature, 4 blood magic, which gives you regeneration, blood surge, and flaming weapons. It's very, very killy. Will take out units very quickly, and you know, Mictlan really needs some kind of bless. The alternative I might have done would have been like a Hun Balam, right? Because having an awake, immobile pretender is a bit sad, right? And what I've done is I've had a bit of a rough expansion. I've lost some of my provinces to Arcosophail over here, but I've been doing research all the while, and I've hit some of my key research goals, right? So I have Conjuration 3 and Enchantment 4, and I've already gone into Evocation 2, which was not something essential. Now, the reason for this is because Phoenix Power is at Conjuration 3, right? And Flaming Arrows is at Enchantment 4. And this is the key to get it for me to get into the mid-game, right? There are a few different ways you could do this. What I'm going to show off with Baratos later is actually probably not what I would advise in hindsight, but it's still good for showcasing it, right? Oh, and I've gotten into blood magic a bit too. Now, I haven't started doing anything with this, but there are a lot of really useful things in blood magic, and for Mictlan, they're useful very early on. Right about this point in the game is when I would like to be utilizing these, because I didn't have a great expansion. I haven't really set up for it very well, but what I need to do here is I need to start, if I had more money, I would build labs on this Palisades right here, and this Palisades over here, right? This one actually has it, right? So now I can start, if I had money again, I could start recruiting Mictlan priests, and I want a ton of Mictlan priests. And so why is that? So the transition into mid-game is mostly marked by hitting key research goals, right? Like Enchantment 4. And in Blood Magic, it's probably going to be a little bit more like Blood 4, right? Bind Jaguar Fiends. I'm getting up to Evocation 3 really quickly, because Evocation 3 is like the same, like less research, I think, or the same amount of research as all the way to Blood 4 by itself, right? And it'll let me do a couple neat things with my mages, so I can get more juice out of like these guys, right? But anyway, Blood Magic 4 would be my next like goal post here, and then I'd go up quite high in Blood Magic. I'm not sure. I'd probably go Construction 4 and then like Blood Magic 7 or something. I'm going Alteration in this case because I want to, you know, actually maybe it's a mistake. I kind of just queued it up. But basically hitting your research goals. That's how you transition into late game as well, right? So forget this stupid alteration stuff that I queued up. It's probably still useful, but you know, let's say Blood Magic 7. That's how we get into late game, right? What we do is we go maybe even higher than 7, right? Where's some really good blood magic stuff, right? So Onaqui, summoning Onaqui is pretty good. These are like big mages that I think they break you into new magic paths. I believe they have death magic. I haven't played Mictlan since they were added to the game. It's been quite a while. But yeah, binding Onaqui, really great. What's one of the other ones in here that you can do? You can bind Archdevils up here. Archdevils are, these are the commanders, right? Be summoned once again. Yeah, these are the Lords of the Inferno. These are mages, and they're going to diversify your magic pathing, and they're very useful, powerful mages. So summoning them, big goal. Only one person can have them summoned at a time, so getting here before someone else and taking them is important. Reign of Jaguars, 8. This is like your endgame shit for Mictlan, right? And this just summons, 14 plus Jaguar Fiends, so these are like flying Jaguars, so, you know, flying jungle cats that are sacred. And so for this bless and build, they're going to be regenerating raging flying jungle cats with fire claws, and they have a lot of it. They have like 3 attacks, I think, so it makes them very good. You can also cast Blood Vortex up here. Blood Vortex, extremely good, and just provides you with a bunch of blood slaves per turn by fucking up your population. You don't care about your population, so that's great for you. But yeah, there's like different breakpoints, right, in Magic, where 4, really good because you can get Jaguar Fiends, right? And then we go up to 7 and we get Onaqui, and then we go up to 8 and we get Reign of Jaguars, which is super amazing. Bind Heliophagus, super amazing. Blood Vortex, this is the other, yeah. Yep, that is the one. Blood Vortex, super amazing, right? And then some other things are kind of not as great, right? There's some other, what's one of the other neat one? Leech at 7 also too. So this makes your priests super duper murderous, right? So it has fatigue cost minus 100, right? Except it's a drain life, right? So it restores fatigue when you cast it, right? And so you can have a few blood slaves on your priests, and if someone comes into your provinces, you just spam this at them. And even for a small group of elite units, this will fuck them up, right? And for thugs, it will wreck them, and one of your weaknesses is thugs, so you'd like to have that, right? So anyway, what am I getting at? The point is that how I've hit mid-game about now, right? Because I have flaming arrows, assuming I remember how this works correctly, which I use with my... If this doesn't work correctly, I'll just be embarrassed. But I used my slinger guys, right? If I had more resources to recruit more troops, I'd probably have like a combination of these warriors with the slings and like maybe some of these guys in the front line, right? Because if they're in the front line, they're going to start engaging in melee combat quickly, and javelins do more damage if you're only going to throw like 2 of them, right? So that's why I've got that. Now I've done some slightly more fancy stuff here, and the reason I was going up Alteration was for Enlarge, but that was stupid in hindsight. It's not quite worth it, but it's nifty with how they've changed slings, and actually I think slings always work this way, but how they've changed bows and stuff, because it makes people do more damage, right? So this guy's going to be, again, this is on the mid-game thing. So in the mid-game, the difference between the early game and the mid-game for the most part, and the early game, you're just expanding, and maybe if you're fighting someone early on, it's going to be decided by how good your troops are, and maybe you use Conjuration to like summon some fire elementals or something, right? And that's about it. That's pretty much that's what's going on in the early game, because early game is when you haven't researched magic yet. So this is a little bit early to be, this is late fall, year 1. So like year 2 is when the mid game maybe starts. For some nations, it starts later, and that's a disadvantage, obviously. Mictlan, one of the things they're good at is starting it earlier. In Dominions 4, they were a little bit OP, and maybe at this point in the game, I would have taken more provinces and have more research and units and more everything. Basically I would have more money and had better scales or a even more powerful bless, and so I'd be in a much better position right about now. But still about now they can get going. A lot of nations can do a similar thing, like Marignan in the Middle Age can do this, because they don't have sacreds and stuff, but they have good regular expansion units, and so they don't have to pay for a bless because their sacreds suck anyway. Oh wait, what am I saying? That's Marignan. No, I'm probably thinking of a different nation. Their sacreds are good. They don't suck anyway at all. However, you actually get a ton of options with Marignan. You can absolutely not even bother with them. So let's pretend you don't bother with them. You can hit this point and you don't have to worry about your sacreds, and all you care about is that you've got flaming arrows, right? And you have fire mages. You can have fire 4 mages. Casting this is super easy. You don't need Conjuration 3. You just need to get lucky on one of your mage recruitments. And not like super lucky, like 25% chance lucky, right? And then bam, that's when you can start fighting people, because flaming arrows is super good, right? And so you recruit a ton of crossbowmen and just enough frontline infantry to get the job done, and you go and you kill everybody. So that's what I'd say. Like the mid game, I don't know. I guess other people might classify the mid game a little bit differently, but I would say the mid game is like year 2, and you finished expansion and you have mages backing up your army, and that's what like signifies the mid game. And if other people do that fast, reach that point faster than you, like they're in the mid game and you're not, and you're at a disadvantage, and you need to be able to beat them with your regular troops or you're screwed. So all right, what I've got going on here, where are these guys? So this guy, I've got 2 mages, right, that are going to be buffing my sacreds, right? And I'm going to be using flaming arrows to buff my non-sacreds, these other guys up here. So these 2 guys in the back, the reason I have my sacreds in the back is also to make my mages more protected, right? Keeping them farther away from the line of fire. Excuse me. And these are just chaff units that are meant to die up front. So these guys are going to be casting spells. This one is nature 3, so he's casting haste, right? That makes my sacreds move faster, which is going to be handy both for chasing enemy armies down as if they start to break and flee, and making sure I kill all of them or as many as possible so they don't get units that have retreated to keep using them. And it also means that they're going to, once they start moving, they're going to be able to close the enemy faster and spend less time not in combat, right? So that's handy. I'm casting regeneration, however, as well, and now that's going to stack, right? Regeneration from up, you can stack regeneration from up to, I believe, 3 sources. You can stack personal regeneration that's innate, right? That's one source. You can stack regeneration that's from a spell, and you can stack regeneration that's from bless. So these guys are going to have regen from bless. They can still get regen from spells. So that's why I'm going to be casting regeneration on them. If I had more magic pathing, I might do other things, like with astral magic. I don't think these guys could do it, but my water priests, water priests? What are they called? Moon priests. Moon priests can totally do it. They can give them ethereal, right? Which would be really great if my opponents don't have magic weapons. But alas, I can't do that. There's probably some other things, like in blood magic. There's like some crazy stuff. Where is it? I think it's pretty high up here. Bloodlust. Oh, that's for demons only. I think there's a version. I want to say there's like a version of that for non-demons, right? That's like a battlefield-wide buff and just makes everybody pissed off. But I might be misremembering. Rush of Strength. Yeah, all friendly units receive bonus strength, right? So that does exactly what it sounds like. You get bonus strength. This is actually probably a lot better than it used to be. It used to be good, like, don't get me wrong. But now this increases the damage of crossbow and archery units as well. Probably by like 1 point. But for like crossbows, 1 point more damage, it's 1 point more armor piercing damage. It's pretty good, especially if you have like 200 units, you know. So it's pretty good, and it would be very good with these guys. But of course, it's research 8, which is a pretty big barrier. Okay, so that said, I'm going to basically just walk out here and find a fight, and we're going to hopefully I won't lose too embarrassingly. This is actually maybe made or was playing too casually, and while trying to playing too casually while trying to just get this set up the way I wanted it. It's not so much as playing to win versus the AI. And so they might kick my ass, but we'll see. Probably not. I think my sacreds are pretty good. These guys are just gonna stay here. I don't want to break siege. Defend the castle. Defend the castle. We're just gonna have this guy. What'll he do? Take like 3 blood slaves. Are we blood sacking anything? No, I'm just out of blood slaves right now. How sad. Okay. I should have thought of this ahead of time, so I wouldn't have to set it up. We're just gonna have these guys all suicidally attack in the front, just in case. These guys are gonna hold and attack closest. And we'll just do bless, bless, bless. Summon imps, cast spells, conserve magic gems. Okay. Alright, so that's probably set up fine. This army here. Can't do anything super interesting. Alright, end turn. Just gonna try and fight them off in the south until I can get a real fight going on. Oh, they attacked my capital. That was stupid of them, wasn't it? Alright, cool. Their walls have barely been damaged. Alright, and break the siege. Break the siege. Actually, if I was more patient, I would tell that guy to not bother casting Blessing, because the other guy's going to cast Divine Blessing because he's our prophet. Okay, so what are we going to do here? So let me talk about the setup I've got going on, right? So I've got Divine Blessing on one of my Priests of the Sun, right? And that's because, so this guy doesn't have to cast it first turn. Someone needs to, right? So that's why I've got 2 Priest 3s with me, right? The other one is here to cast Flaming Arrows. He's I still only. Oh yeah, they're always only fire too. That's right. So he needs a magic gem to cast flaming arrows, and a magic gem to boost his magical pathing, which is a thing that you can do, to cast flaming arrows, right? So with the magic gem, he can boost his pathing to 3, and he has to cast Phoenix Power, which will boost it to 2, or to 3, to 4. So it's boosting to 2 with Phoenix Power, and then it'll temporarily be boosted to 4 for the casting of the spell. And after that, he's going to be fatigued out and very sad, which is why... Does he have Blood Slaves? That's right, I should actually have him also cast Reinvigoration, which is a blood spell, which removes all of your... It costs 100 fatigue and removes all of your fatigue at this also, which is pretty handy. And then this guy's just going to cast spells, which will probably be like fireballs. Can I cast fireball yet? Fireballs. Yeah, sweet. Okay, that's cool. And this guy's going to do Phoenix Power and summon 2 fire elementals, and then cast Reinvigoration to remove his fatigue. So he's going to get some fire elementals going down the side here, and then he's going to be good to go again too. So that's cool. This guy's going to give us more Jaguar Warriors and chill out. And we're just going to fight these Jotun Huskarls. So hopefully I should kick their asses, probably. And I'll get to show off how much mages impact the battle. Neat. Yeah. All right, 35 units killed. These aren't a ton of units, but these are giants, right? So, like, I mean, this AI has made a really shitty army, so it's not a great show-off. But, I mean, they do 23 damage. Look, they got, like, 30 hit points. Very spooky, right? Okay, so... hopefully, if I remember correctly, and you can, in fact, have flaming slings, right? I'm pretty sure you can. But if you can't, that would be very sad and embarrassing. I know you can have flanking monkey shit, so there we go. Yeah, flaming slings. If this was a real game, I would be very confident at this point of invading Jotun super hard. Unfortunately, Arcosophail's already fighting me, but if I was playing a real game with players, I would talk to Arcosophail, try and get him to like piss off so I can kill Niflheim, because his elite units, his like super great units, are really, really shitty versus fire, right? They have weakness fire 5, which means if you hit them with any fire damage, they will catch on fire and burn to death. And that's the end of that. So unless he's countered that already and he's got Flame Ward up, and even if he does, he's gonna have like a hard time getting on every single unit, right? Or he won't be able to have a lot of units to use it with. He's gonna have a bad time. So let's just do this some more, and I'll look at. Let's go back into the battle here and look at the blessings. So this was so easy, I didn't really get to show off most of the advantage of this, but let's like roll this forward a little bit here. So I don't know if these guys actually got successful regen casts off at all. I'm pretty sure these guys were set to wait, but they didn't do it. Did this guy get regen 20%? Who got regen? There's only like 1 square of units, so it's just a few people, right? Hold on, let's exit the battle and try this again. Alright. Slow it down. We're going to have to be very patient, I guess. I hate being patient. So these guys might not be able to cast regen on anyone because they started attacking immediately, and I could have sworn I told them to hold an attack, but I may have made a mistake. Is that these guys? These guys get regen cast on them? These guys each cast regeneration, and no one has it. I'm confused. Did he cast it on... He cast it on the Blood Slaves. He cast it on the fucking blood... God damn it. Alright, well. Casting buffs is a little bit tricky. Let's go with that. So I'm gonna have to I think I'm gonna have to risk a little bit more for this, right? So we're gonna put these guys in here. Yeah, I didn't tell them to hold. So this is me being really stupid. You need to have them hold an attack because otherwise they're going to run away from the buffs, right? And you can only buff 1 square of units at a time. It's only 3 dudes. And so two turns, 3 dudes. So you're going to get like 9 units. You're going to have regen cast on like 9 units. It's going to be very powerful for those because they go, of course, it's twice as good. They go from regenning, 4 or 2 to regenning 4. It's very nice. For obvious reasons, right? Unit cannot lead in units. Oh, that's right. That's a problem. Okay, let's see. What was I doing? So I'm just going to leave that alone because I don't really care about winning. I just want to show off another fight. Hopefully this time it'll go a little better. We'll get the regen cast on here, right? Defeated the attacking force from Niflheim, and this was a bit spookier. Cool. All right, nice. That's good to see. All right. So, oh, they've summoned a bunch of undead. Very nice. Makes me glad I didn't go with an Obelisk, right? Okay, so this time, pause. Hold on. Where's the? There should be some dudes somewhere in here with regen. Fucking 20%. There we go. There we go. It worked. 20% regen. Some guys are going to get haste cast on them as well, which should show itself off really obviously in a bit. That should be nice. So Phoenix Power, we'll get flaming arrows, and it's going to be great. Okay. Let's turn the battle spam off. So now flaming arrows is up. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to show you guys. So flaming arrows, right? This adds 8 damage, right? Slings do 8 damage. So every sling stone is now doing double damage. It's actually better than that though, because this is AP damage, right? So this ignores half of the enemy's armor value when rolling, right? So like, there's no one, they only have undead here, huh? They don't have any regular units. All right, so if this guy, let's pretend he had like 14 armor, right? That's a little more realistic. 14 armor. So 14 armor would be 7 armor, right? And it's 8 damage. So on average, you're going to deal at least 1 point of damage to someone with 14 armor. Now, that's not the only advantage it has, right? Of course, you can critical roll. So it means that, you know, people with 15, 16, 17, 18 armor will still sometimes be dealt damage by this, right? The other thing is it's a magical weapon, which means, like, look at these guys. These guys have ethereal. Guess what? Very hard to hit with non-magical weapons. Now, your actual slingstone doesn't deal damage, I believe, or probably won't, but the fire part of the damage will always hit. And this guy has 0 protection. It's very common with a lot of ethereal units, so there's a good chance he'll be one-shot. It's probably like, I don't know what the actual odds on it are. Maybe 20%? I'm not sure. I think it's a 1d6, so it's pretty good, actually, that he gets one-shot. Since he has no armor, it's pretty good odds. It's not 50-50, but it's only a little bit worse. And yeah, so that's a really nice bonus for them. And I haven't even, this is swiftness, so his attack speed isn't going to be affected by his combat speed is 16. I wonder if that's actually shown. What about someone who isn't affected? Combat speed is only 11. Yeah, so he's going to move more squares per turn. So let's get this started. And now these guys start moving very quickly up there. And our fire elementals are going to go over here, and they're going to kill a couple of these extra good long dead each. Actually, more than a couple. All right, cool. Right. I think we saw some people rapidly regenning at 4. So yeah, like I probably could have won this fight with this kind of army, right? Anyway, probably. Unfortunately, now I'm like boned, and I'm gonna get fucked over because I didn't have enough. Like what I really want is like I want it like 10 times the number of warriors. Like these guys, you can recruit a lot of these guys in one round, right? And you can recruit them from a few different places. This place was a very stupid choice by me. I forgot about how things have changed in Dominions 5, and this can't recruit any units. I can recruit like 1 unit per turn. I actually probably should have like tried to take over this throne and recruit units here because Mictlan doesn't really care about resources, and this also would have been a good spot right here to recruit units from. And I could also, you know, I could recruit quite a few guys, actually more than from my capital from here, right? So this is pretty good. And I could have, what I'd want to do in a proper game is gather up dudes from here and gather up dudes from over here, and I'd take a lot of these guys. Probably wouldn't actually cancel recruiting Jaguar warriors to do it, right? But you'd want to take a ton of those guys into combat. And basically the thing is that I was talking about with flaming arrows is slingers in the early age are actually pretty good. Blunt damage, because they can hit your head sometimes, right? And some nations, especially in the early age, don't like to wear hats. Blunt damage will deal double damage on a head hit, right? So they're quite good some of the time, right? And then with the fire damage added on, doubling their total damage. And with these guys being like, these are 9 gold per dude and 6 resources, and they don't, let's see, they do actually wear leather caps, right? These are like surprisingly well armored for how cheap they are, and they're perfectly good at both ranged and melee combat, right? They're kind of not perfectly good, but like equally crappy, right? And then what you can also do, of course, is you can gather slaves, and that's where I got those slave guys from. Mictlan has a special to capture slaves. As another nation, you might do something different, right? But it's basically the same thing. Instead, you're gonna have like some kind of cheap archer or like skirmisher unit, and if you have access to like fire too, it's probably a viable strategy for you to just recruit a ton of that unit and go nuts, right? As Baratos, which I'm gonna show off now, you can do a similar strategy. And a ton of nations can do this. Like any nation with fire magic, this is probably a decent idea, as long as they also have archers or slingers. If they don't have archers or slingers, it's a little bit sketchier. Monkeys can throw poop, and you can make it flaming, and that adds 8 damage to it, and it's actually quite good. So there's that. Where am I going with this? So the point is, sorry. So that's a sort of a strategy you might use going into the mid game, and there are other similar strategies. I don't want to outline every single one of them. However, they exist, and let's see, how can you find them? I guess looking a variety of places, including some of my other videos for mentions of good spells to use that you can make a strategy that revolves around those spells is fine. But like, there's kind of similar trends, right? So evocation, this is what I'm showing off with Baratos. There's a couple points where you can hit like evocation breakpoints. There's a very early one where you just go up to evocation 3 and you cast Fireball. So why is that? So if you look at at Fireball, here's how you can tell it's a good spell, right? So it's armor piercing, so ignore some armor, so the damage is going to probably get through. 16 armor piercing means that you would need 32 armor to have a 50% chance of stopping it, so it's not happening. Some damage is getting through unless you have like heavy fire resistance to block it. Now it also deals fatigue damage, right? Fatigue damage is always going to affect you normally unless you have 5 resistance. If you have 5 resistance to the elemental type, you ignore fatigue damage of that elemental type. So for anyone who's not a fire resistant nation, right, like you can't do this on Abyssia, obviously, or against them rather. As them, it's very, very good. You're going to fatigue troops out, and fatiguing troops out reduces their combat capabilities in general. And it's very good. At 100 fatigue, they actually pass out. So you want to do this. As pretty much anyone, it's a great thing to do. Fatiguing people out is super strong, especially when you have good troops yourself. But it's going to be good anyway. Even if your troops are shit, it's still going to be good. It's especially good against elite troops that are often immune to damage or very resistant to it. The fatigue area is very large, so if you kind of pepper the battlefield with these fireballs, you're going to make their troops fatigue out sooner than yours, and you can combine fatigue effects, right? So Fireball is a good early ability because it both deals damage in an area and it fatigues people, right? And there are similar abilities that you can use. I don't know if there's a good example outside of Fireball right there, but for higher tier, right, there's a strategy you can do with air magic. For example, it's kind of like a more powerful but more intensive version of Fireball. So Thunderstrike is a really, really OP spell. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say it's really, really OP, but it's very, very good, to put it another way. This deals stun damage. There's something to note about stun damage is it can actually like essentially stun, as in like knock out or paralyze a unit for a couple turns. I can't remember exactly how that works, but whenever you take stun damage, there's a chance that'll happen. But this also deals fatigue damage, just like we were talking about with the Fireball, right? So this is super duper good, and the something that's not mentioned here is that the effects of the spell get more powerful during the spell Storm. Now, Storm stops many flying units, creates more fatigue for people casting fire magic, and also improves the effects of Fireball and stops arrows, right? It makes a lot of the arrows that are fired every turn disappear. So, for example, someone using that flaming arrows tactic that I was talking about, this would be a good counter spell to that, sort of. It's not the best one. The best one is Arrow Fend, which blocks 80% of projectiles. But it's quite good, and it makes your troops better at the same time. So I had a bit of a derpy start, and this is like what, winter in year 2. So this is closer to like late mid game, right? This is pretty far into the mid game. Late game is really closer to like late in year 3, year 4. Which is, like 50 turns, 60 turns in, then you're in late game. But this is pretty deep into mid game. Normally you'd hit your stride a lot sooner, and hopefully I will get to show off some similar tactics here with Baratos. Let me go back to this. So what I'm trying to get at with this is that you want to hit some useful spellcasting goal for the magic paths your nation has access to, right? So for early age Mictlan, and that sometimes it has to work with your troops, and sometimes it doesn't, right? Like this, it doesn't really matter what your troops are. Thunderstrike spamming is just going to be good because it revolves around your mages obliterating the enemy troops with a very powerful spell, right? Or a combination of powerful spells, as I'm going to show off in a bit. I'm going to use Orb Lightning. So this is kind of independent of your troops. However, of course, for Flaming Arrows, it's only a good idea if you have access to ranged troops, and if you want to, you might be able to do it anyway, but you need to get access to ranged indies. For example, Early Age Abyssia gets natural Fire 4 mages, right? Casting Flaming Arrows is no problem for them, and their troops are immune to the fire portion of it. What's the problem? They don't have ranged units, right, to begin with. So they would go for Evocation for the Fireball, right? Evocation 3, and then maybe like Conjuration 3, and maybe summon some Fire Elementals, cast some Fireballs, summon Phoenix Power, and just cast Fireballs more efficiently and more damagingly, and cast some other fire spells, mix and match, right? So, and then there are other nations that aren't going to be able to do this, either of these strategies, and then there are other strategies for those nations, right? And you can kind of just look through the magic schools yourself and pick out strategies that are good for your nation. So, like Alteration, right? So this is the magic school. It's mostly going to have earth and nature magic stuff in it that you can use. That's useful, right? So you might want to say like, all right, well, what can I do? What can I do in here? So like, you can look through Alteration magic and particularly pay attention to like the higher cost spells, because these are like the big battlefield spells, and ones that cost gems tend to be pretty like big deal spells. So Curse of Stones, because of its fatigue cost 300, it actually takes more than Earth 3 to cast it. You need at least Earth 4 to cast this. I want to say, I wonder if it's worse than that. Yeah, you need like, if with Earth 4 and like 4 Earth gems, you can cast this no problem. And so this is super good. It's another spell that will fatigue out enemy units, or all, I think it's enemy army. Yeah, all enemy units are affected by this and causes them to take increased fatigue. So as long as the battle is going to last a long time, this is just a very good spell for any nation that can cast it. And this is the kind of thing you want to do as an earth nation. And you've got destruction, right? Destroys armor. So like, think about this. You can combine these two things, and this is quite good. The enemies lose their armor, they get fatigued out, and you can let your troops kill them. And you might say, well, my troops are really shit, I can't do anything with that. Well, there's earth meld back down here. So you have a couple of mages deal with those bigger spells, and then you add this in. So, and this locks troops into the ground, and then they can't move or attack. Their combat stats are garbage. They can't defend themselves at all. They're going to get slaughtered, right? So you got to like ask yourself, what do I need to research so that my mages can support my army? And then you have to actually support your army with your mages, right? Another thing that's crucial is making sure you have the gem resources to do this, and you have set up like the economy to do this, right? So Dominions 4, not big on the economy, but it does sort of matter. So like, one of the things, again, I talked about like fort placement, right? And I kind of screwed up last time on that, my other game on that. This game as well, I think it's something I'm gonna have to work on a bit, especially in Dominions 5, because I keep forgetting to check population. And like here, right, like 1,600 population, that's not enough. You can't build a fort there. Totally wasted. This one, 3,000. Again, totally wasted. I should have built it here. 5,000 is not good, but I could have built it up there, right? So anyway, so your fort placement, the reason this matters is because you need more mages than you're going to be able to get from just your capital as any nation, right? Well, okay, not Lemuria and Middle-Age Airmore summon their mages, so that's not a relevant comment, but, you know, other than that, yeah, you're going to need more mages. And that's because the mages are going to decide who wins, right? Like, these guys should be able to kill like a huge number of troops in the upcoming battles that I'm going to do here. So it's a big deal to be able to get enough mages. It's also going to be a big deal to get enough troops. I think it's more the case in Dominions 5 than it was in Dominions 4, because of the difficulties you're going to have recruiting all of your troops from like 1 or 2 forts that you might not have had in older versions of the game. So anyway, but the mages are the big thing. You really need to get enough mages, and you need so that they can actually support your army. And so you got to look through here and say, what do I need for mages to support my army? And then you got to make sure that you can actually have that happen, right? Oh, gems, that's the other thing I mentioned. So if you look here, I have site searched most of these. This got taken over by indies because I didn't put enough PD on it, but whoops, again. So I've site searched through most of these provinces. And I've actually found like a decent number of sites, and so I've got quite not great gem income, but okay gem income. I probably should have been a little bit more thorough even. And I also probably, if I forgot I was about this because I don't play Veritas very much, but I should have built more of a blood economy by now, probably. Similar thing for Mictlan. Mictlan was at the beginning of the year 1, so that's fine, probably. But you'd want to go pretty hard by that point, building out your blood economy. That's a thing that's Blood Nation specific, but other nations have similar quirks, right? Let's see. Otherwise, you would just focus on the forts, right? Just build out the forts and research. And if you have a special thing for your nation, it's probably going to be mentioned in their nation description, or you could look up a tutorial for the nation. You want to pay attention to that. I guess blood nations are worth mentioning because there are a lot of them in the game, not so much in the Middle Age, but both in the late and early age, there's quite a few. And so what I mean by blood economy is that blood mages can blood hunt, right? So, one sec. Blood mages can blood hunt, and I think I've mentioned this in some of my other more general videos. This pisses off the population, right? Causes unrest and kills your population, but you get blood slaves, which are like the blood gems, right? And you can do very useful things with them. For example, let's look at some ritual spells, right? We can cast like Summon Shadim. Actually, I can't cast Summon Shadim because you have to be in a waste. But we can cast Scapegoats. We can cast Bind Devils. We can cast Bind Storm Demons. I'll bind some Storm Demons and show you what those guys look like. They're basically, it's a way to get a wide variety of elite units. There's also magical items you can craft. You get a lot of valuable things out of blood magic. Any nation that has access to blood mages pretty much should, maybe with the exception of Middle Vanarus, there's like 1 or 2 nations where it's like a slow to recruit cap only mage that gets the blood magic and that's it. And those nations can't really do it. But any other nation pretty much that has access to blood magic should be utilizing it because it's very powerful. And your nation is probably balanced around using your blood magic to summon creatures, right? And so blood magic is basically the summoning magic school in Dominions. Conjuration, of course, has a wide variety of summons from all other kinds of things. But the thing about blood magic is that blood magic contains numerous cost-effective summons that are worth using. That's not really true of conjuration. It's filled with a lot of garbage, honestly. So anyway, I think I'll just get into some combat now. Okay, let's see how this went. I only lost a couple troops, so hopefully that means this actually went well, but maybe they just all died and ran away too fast. Oh, this is such a small army. This is such overkill. Okay, so they got their air shields. Summon storm power. All right, let's watch the fire, the thunder spam coming. All right, there we go. Dear God, what did they just do there? Did they just slime? Pretty sure my own mages just went a little wild there and cast some unexpected spells. Whoops. Guys, what in the devil are they doing that for? They've got the range. Alright, well, let's look for a bigger battle to show this off a little bit better. Oh, wrong place. Huh. Did I forget? Nope. Well, let's move these guys up a little bit. This is going to be a little bit time consuming, but I'm going to move my whole set of mages up. What I think may have happened is, let's see, Orb Lightning. I think it's these guys. Yeah, probably the guys who are casting Orb Lightning, right? So I wanted to show off Orb Lightning as an example of another spell besides Thunderstrike that you might cast. And I think I just went a bit too... They weren't far enough up. I guess it would be fine if the enemy army hadn't caved so quickly, but such is life. Oh, these are all guys I've already moved. So let me see if there's anything else I can talk over. I think I've covered most of the salient points, and I'm pretty much down to just showing you or going all in and making like 70 videos on how to get into the late game as every nation in the game. But yeah, I think pretty much what you do is what I do in particular, if I'm looking at a nation that I want to play, right? And I'm like, all right, how do I get into the mid game? It's always something I consider, right? And it's always going to be about the mages, right? once in a while, you might play a nation where maybe the strategy is more a bless rush, right? Where like you don't think you're gonna have to deal with mages so much because you're just gonna go ahead and win the game before this becomes relevant. But it's not really realistic anymore in Dominions 5, I don't think, and you know, you always have to have a backup plan. So you really need to be thinking about how your mage core is gonna let you win the game. I guess I'll attack this throne. This looks more dangerous than any army the actual enemy or NPCs have available. So this should be a little bit cooler, I hope. Oh boy. Well, there's their army, just not coming to fight me. Okay, cool. So this should be a good, better showcase. So our troops start advancing up. We cast Storm. Everybody casts Summon Storm Power. Let's pause this really quick. Okay, so why does everyone cast Summon Storm Power? All right, because a lot of these mages, some of these mages have Air 2 and some of them have Air 1, right? And Air 1 is not high enough to do anything useful, right? Air 3 lets you cast Thunderstrike, however, and Air 2 lets you cast Orb Lightning, which shoots a lightning bolt at one guy and then it arcs to 5 nearby targets, right? That's quite good. Okay, so let's play through here. So these Thunderstrikes are not going to affect these guys as much because they're undead, actually. So that stun effect I was talking about, totally useless against undead. Okay, well the stun actually does work, but stun fatigue damage is useful against undead. Yeah, has this changed how this worked between games? I might have to double check. Ooh, they just hit my own units with the lightning bolt. See that? That's a little bit of a little bit of backfire going on there. That's gonna happen. So I'm gonna just issue a caveat right here. I think I'm like 85-90% sure that in Dominions 4, what happened was that lightning bolts dealt stun damage, which was the same thing as fatigue damage, right? And they would fatigue undead, but it wouldn't do anything else to them because undead aren't affected by fatigue until it's like, I think it's over 100 it does affect them, or over 200 it starts damaging them. But yeah. Now, these are very definitely getting stunned, which is an effect I've never seen before in like 600 hours of Dominions 4. So I think it's different in Dominions 5, which would make this this spell more effective against certain types of units, mostly undead, exactly like we're fighting now. So there's a bunch of friendly fire, and something I should point out that's a advantage of nations that have very crappy, cheap troops, right? Is that as a nation that's recruiting a lot of like these guys, right? So these Grecian heavy spearmen, they are 12 gold, which is not super expensive, but it's, you know, like elite unit status, and they're pretty good infantry, and they take a lot of resources and stuff. And losing them to friendly fire kind of sucks. But losing some like piece of shit troop that was free, like slaves that I like fucking abducted as early age Mictlan, not such a big deal. Anyway, so yeah, friendly fire is going to happen. You're kind of screwed, and depending, you can potentially cause it to happen more. For example, one thing that's useful for obvious reasons is attacking the enemy backlines with cavalry or flying units. Well, another reason it's useful is that their mages may decide that they need to defend themselves from those units, right? And so let's say my mages cast Thunderstrike like right amongst their own number. There's a good chance I could Thunderstrike and kill like one enemy Pegasus Rider and 3 of my mages or something. That's the square math doesn't work out for that, but you know, similar stuff can happen. It'd be worse if they were like Eagle Warriors, because I could have a square where there's an Eagle Warrior and 2 mages in it, and that could actually happen. So where else to go with this? I think this covers it. This is I'm always not sure where to end these videos, and this is a very nebulous sort of topic. This is kind of a nebulous topic to cover as well, by nature. But yeah, let's recap this really quick. So this was one strategy I showed you, and the same nation could go. Damn it, hold on a second. I don't want those constant beeps. I forgot I had Discord running in the background. So yeah, this same nation could have gone flaming arrows, right? This is a good example of when you have multiple options, right? So I had to rush up Evocation 5 and Conjuration 3. This is like a longer term goal than what I showed off with Mictlan. And this same nation can go and get flaming arrows, right? And do the flaming arrow strategy. They actually have quite good cheap archers. They have fire 3 mages. They can do it. And I just chose to go this route to show you off something else. But an important point of that is that many nations in the game, Mictlan included, have multiple options for what they can rush in terms of research to try and move into the mid game. And part of the reason I don't think it's really viable to cover this on a nation by nation basis is that it's also going to change a little bit depending on what other nations you're going to face and what the exact situation in your game is, and what kind of strategy you enjoy, and what pretender you're playing with. Usually there's multiple options there as well, right? It's a very complicated game. I think I'm only really at an intermediate level after I think I've got like 700 hours in Dominions 4 logged on Steam. I've played hundreds of hours off of Steam. You get the idea, right? So there's a ton of options, and you basically just need to figure out how to decide for yourself. And so I think what you really just have to do is take a look at the nations you're going to play and look through the spells available to them based on the pathing your mages get, and decide what kind of things you want to go for, and to just generally have like a general knowledge of what each magic school has available to it, right? Nature magic and earth magic have a lot of buffs. Nature magic has more buffs available. Earth magic has some evocation available to it as well, stuff like Blade Wind that's very good. And Earth Meld is in Alteration, but it's a very offensive kind of spell. You need your army to follow up on it, but it's powerful debuffing, I guess I should say, as well. Fire magic is all about the evocation, and more evocation. In other magic schools, there are fire spells as well, but they tend to be more of the same in different flavors. Astral magic tends to not have a lot of AoEs. It has one notable powerful offensive spell in evocation called Stellar Cascades. But other than that, it's kind of utility, single target, has some buffs. And other such things. You've got water magic has some decent buffs, some weak evocations, and it's a little lackluster in general. But there's also some good stuff in crafting and conjuration. Let's see. Who am I leaving out? Nature, Earth, Death. Death magic is generally very powerful. It has some decent evocations. It has some of the best summons in conjuration. It has some summons in enchantment as well, I believe. And it has a very powerful temporary, like battle summons in enchantment. And some very powerful battlefield magic for late game. It's very, very good magic school in general, I would say. One of the better ones. Blood magic, very good at summoning, right? All about the summoning, has its own research path, etc. Am I forgetting a magic path? Oh, I can't just check. Whoops. I am forgetting, right? That's everything, right? It is. Okay. Oh, air. I didn't actually mention air. Air has some cool alterations and is extremely good at evocation. It's kind of got a limited selection of very powerful spells, is sort of its style. It's also got some good shit in enchantment, I believe, too. Trade Wind, Arrow Fend, is that where? Mist of Deception, Thunder Fend. Where's the... Oh, maybe it's Alteration. Where you get Phantasmal Army. Yep, Alteration. It's got some really good stuff in Alteration that's both like utility / offensive. This is where you summon illusory enemies, and they attack and distract your enemies. They don't really do very much, but they do slow enemy armies down. They distract them from attacking your real troops, etc. So yeah, there's all those different options, and you can use them in a variety of ways to kill the enemy troops, to buff your own troops, to create thugs and super combatants to solo enemy troops. You can use those same tactics to raid enemy provinces, either with mages or super combatants or small groups of stealth troops, and not to mention what you can do with magic item creation, which can sometimes allow you to do some of these strategies on unexpected units in unexpected ways, like getting a flying carpet and using it to ferry one powerful mage and some elite troops behind enemy lines to raid their profitable territories, right, and make them lose gold. So basically, yeah, that's the deal. You gotta look through the different magic schools. You gotta look at what things you can potentially cast and get an idea of what you want to do, right? Buffs are more valuable on certain types of units, right? Either often very elite troops are good to buff, and very shitty troops are good to buff if you can buff like a ton of them, right? Like middle age Pangea and their Manad spam, right? Actually, early age, I believe, gets it too. So, middle age Pangea is my favorite version of the one I've played the most, so I'm going to use them as an example. They can cast this Alteration spell. Let's take a look at it. It's this great Alteration spell, and it's good for a lot of people. Wooden Warriors is the earlier version, and then the very convenient version is Mass Protection at level 7. It causes every allied troop on the battlefield to gain Bark Skin, which sets their natural protection to 10. So this is very good in a variety of different types of troops, right? It's good on Maenads because their natural protection normally is 0, but you get so many of them, right? So having like 300 units that normally are like kind of neat, and you can slowly overwhelm the enemy with them, and they go from being 300 units with no protection to 300 units with 10 protection. It's an enormous change in how hard those 300 units are for the enemy to kill, right? If they're using weapons anyway. Huge. Now, armored troops, of course, going from like 3 protection, maybe they have more than 0. They might have like 3, but I think it's 0. Going from like 0 or 3 protection to like 10, it's a big change for armored units. It can often be the difference between like 15 and 20 protection or 18 and 21, and that can be like an important change. But basically, if your troops are your key focus, either because you have hordes of cheap ones or very good elite ones, especially it's usually for elite troops, usually means troops that are more able to kill a lot of stuff quickly, because troops that just bog down the enemy army that are elite are not particularly useful, right? Because they just kind of sit around and then get killed by spells, and then you're like, well, why did I pay all this gold for these troops, right? Because they're getting killed really easily by spells. So that's kind of the deal, right? So you can buff troops, you can kill enemy troops, you can create elite units, you can do all these different strategies. Just look at what your nation can do. Pick something you think is good for hopefully good reason, and commit to it, and have like a plan to make sure you're ready to do it by like the sometime in year 1, early year 2, right? Which means like by turn 20. Yeah. Because going into the mid game, you should be supporting your troops with magic. And going into the late game, not only should you be supporting your troops with magic, you're going to be casting battlefield destroying magic. Spells like Earthquake and Bone Grinding and Rain of Stones or Gifts from Heaven that can either instantly kill elite units when massed, destroy whole battlefields. Like Thunderstrike spam, like imagine if you had like 40 mages doing that, right? And it does so much damage, it's pretty much just gonna kill a square of troops and fuck up the troops near them per cast, right? And so let's say you've got like 40 troops casting it, so that's like 40 squares, which could be against humans, that's 3 units per square, right? So 120 units per turn if they all hit. So that's pretty good. It's a lot, that's a big impact. And then later on you get some very powerful spells around like level 8 in a school. So like Blood Magic 8, the end game with Mictlan, is you're summoning armies of demons every turn, and you take those armies and you send them out to fight people. And as you get later into the late game, you're going to cast big battlefield spells on those armies. You're going to cast stuff like Mass Protection. You're going to cast stuff like Army of Lead, which is kind of like Mass Protection, but if it also made your units resistant to magic and gave them 20 protection instead of 10, right? Actually, you won't do that as Mictlan because you don't have Earth Magic, but some nations you would. You would as Middle Pangea, right, which has a similar kind of endgame. They can do Blood Magic and stuff. So, yeah, you got to be ready to get into those different stages of magic. It's all about the magical research. It's all about scaling out your forts that you have control of so that you can create mages to do the research to get into the mid game, and so you have the mages available to support your armies. I would also say from like a multiplayer and aggression standpoint, getting into the mid game, you should probably kill someone, right? Like you want to have taken out another player. If you're going to be on your way to victory, you should probably kill someone. I think the best I've ever done was as Atlantis Late Age Atlantis, I'd killed a player by turn 15 and had his capital. And of course, it's kind of an unfair example because I had such a good matchup versus him, it was very easy to do. But other nations can do it almost as quickly. Like when you're going into turn 20, you should be thinking like, who am I going to fight? Right, with my new found research goal. Like you're playing early Mictlan or a similar nation like Middle Marignon, and you've got flaming arrows now, right? And you should have someone in your sights to kill them because when you hit these useful research goals, that's when you have the advantage. And you know, the deeper metagame is knowing when other people have the advantage, so you can know that, like, as Middle Marignon, if you're playing up against, like, I mean, that's too good of a matchup. Pangea, for example, you can probably have flaming arrows online before Pangea has anything they really want online. Same thing goes for like Jotunheim, right? So that's the time to nail them to the wall, right? And for example, Middle Age Ulm also not necessarily a good matchup because flaming arrows is not so effective against them as they do have troops with like 16, 17, 20 armor, right? But Middle Ulm wants Evocation 6. Now that takes a good bit longer to get to than, say, just Enchantment 4, which is all that Middle Marignon needs. So Middle Marignon can go Enchantment 4 and just immediately start fighting people. And as they're fighting people, they're going up towards Conjuration 3, which is just going to make it that much easier. And then Evocation 3. And so at a certain point, you've got fireballs, you've got flaming arrows, and you've got the ability to summon fire elementals, and you can cast these at a very low amount of fatigue pretty early on into the game. It's still in the mid-game, right? And so you're going to have like these stages of mid-game. And something else I should mention is that some nations will have a more complicated endgame, right? Marignon, Middle Marignon in particular, is a good example of this. Their endgame is going to be a bitch and a half to get to because it mostly revolves around these angelic summons that they have access to, but they don't easily have access to them. They need to path boost and do construction and stuff, and they need to do it though because it gives them access to new magic paths, which will give them a bigger advantage, more access to more counters, access to just more stuff that they can do, right, as they go into the end game. And then certain things will get countered too, like flaming arrows is great when you first get it, but there are spells like Arrow Fend and Storm that are slightly harder to research than, or more out of the way to research than flaming arrows is, but will largely negate the advantage you have from it, right? So yeah, like you got to keep that in mind as well. So that's what I'm trying to say is basically, I've recapped it a few times. I think we're good. You know, hit magical goals, support your troops with mages, you know, be aggressive if you're playing versus real players, not versus the AI. Versus the AI, you can kind of dick around. And use your advantages while you've got them, right? Because if you don't use an advantage like that while you've got it, then you're going to lose out to other people who have a similar advantage and use it while it's there, right? So yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. Hopefully this was helpful. This was kind of a marathon, and I don't know if I don't know. I'm not 100% sold on the general description of how to get into the mid game. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions about anything that was unclear. If I made any mistakes, I'm sure I did. I'm pretty sure I need to go look up what the deal is with Thunderstrike because I swear it worked differently. But there's always the off chance that it totally worked exactly this way in Dominions 4, and I'm just dumb and having a brain fart. But thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day.